Sonachino Sadame, motherfuckers. Jonathan Joestar vs Tanjiro Demon Slayer. Let's get to the review. I still don't really know how to start these half the time. As you might know, I came into Season 9 with the reveals only having a strong opinion on Jonathan vs Tanjiro as a match that I liked, because it had Jonathan and Jonathan won. But was the episode going to live up to that? Well, the analysis sure didn't. The analysis is just done funny. It's not a single joke I thought was funny at all, aside from the one in the Tanjiro preview that doesn't count. I don't know if it's just because they're badly written. I mean, a lot of them are. Like the Pickle Rick joke or the Nickel joke, which is not only done wrong, but also frustrating, because Boomstick says, oh, there's two anime protagonists who kill monsters with the power of breathing. But then on the left side, that's not Jonathan, it's Zeppeli. And also Joseph exists. And the delivery of most of these jokes is so underwhelming too. I'm mostly not a fan of how they tackle the calcs. They don't mention the number, they just have it offhand on the corner, which some people might not notice, like I didn't the first time. Honestly, I also just find the Tanjiro analysis underwhelming as fuck. It feels like they barely said anything about Demon Slayer, just the stats and abilities, which feels weird given how the last few episodes balance things really well. Jonathan's is better, though still really unfunny. Didn't like the fisting joke much, and also the Wim Hof bit is a bit weird when you consider almost none of that man's claims have been scientifically proven, and 4 people have died attempting Wim Hof's methods, so citing him is actually really uncomfortable, at least for me, with some knowledge of the guy's claims and the issues involving them.
Unless your dad, in all his infinite wisdom, decided to adopt
many symptoms of
As for the animation itself, I don't really like how it starts. Jonathan is acting way too much like Patroclus from Soul Calibur for me, and I fucking despise Patroclus. The ending also confirms that Tanjiro could have just said that Nezuko is a sister, and apparently Jonathan wouldn't have done anything, and it's very rare for a death battle to low-key point out how stupid its setup is. Generally, could have just had the episode start in media res during a Jonathan and Demon Nezuko fight where Jonathan grievously wounds her, and Tanjiro rushes in to save her. We don't need to know why Jonathan and Nezuko are fighting, but we can come to our own conclusions. Both characters are justified and remain in character, and the ending still works. Nezuko also runs away twice. Also, don't really like Tanjiro's weird joke about Jonathan hurting his head. It just feels kind of weird and unfunny, and later goes into Tanjiro saying that Jonathan, who he either thinks is crazy or concussed right now, is like a puppy, and wonders if he has a caretaker. Now, I'm not going to say Death Battle intended for this to be taken the way it can be taken. I think it just has some rather unfortunate implications that were not intended at all. But I have seen how some ableist people treat those with mental disabilities, and it's not uncommon, unfortunately, for them to treat them as if they're dogs or, in general, pets with caretakers. So from my experience, this just becomes really uncomfortable for me. Still, this was not intended. I don't want to see people trying to use this to say that Death Battle are evil or whatever. The sword fight is also quite janky, and while I like the build up here with the water wheel disarming Jonathan and Jythek building up to a punch rush, the punch rush is fucking atrocious. I'm sorry to whoever animated this, but this feels barely animated. Jonathan is tweening across the ground, his legs motionless, himself just floating in the air like he's Star Platinum, sliding across the floor with his toes. His arms barely move as a motion blur is applied, and it just looks fucking awful. And he looks weird after the punch too. However, the zoom punch is amazing, because it's the zoom punch and they included it in the fight, and I love it. I don't like this water attack. I think this looks really bad because the water is just motionless, and what the fuck, this just looks so stupid. Jonathan punching Tanjiro's sword, however, is amazing, and I like that Jonathan is complimenting Tanjiro throughout the fight. I also like Tanjiro headbutting Jonathan and stabbing him, but Jonathan giving him a good boot anyway. In general, I think Jonathan's characterization is very strong, and this episode also does something I want more of, letting us see into the thoughts of the characters. It really helps get across what they're thinking and works wonderfully. Also, Jonathan just raw uprooting a tree and weaponizing it is fucking great. I love this, even if the frame rate shits the bed for a second. Then we get the sword clash, which on one hand it barely looks like the swords are touching, and on the other, I like Jonathan's dialogue. The following sword fight then, it is stellar. Tanjiro's voice actor really makes him sound like he's giving it his all with each strike, and I think he might get drowned out by Jonathan's for a lot. But I want to give credit to Zach Mayer. While a lot of his dialogue I think is delivered kind of uninterestingly, just because Tanjiro is not a very uniquely voiced character in general, when Tanjiro is fighting, his grunts are really impactful, even if they are a bit overshadowed by Benji Buckley's stellar performance as Jonathan. While some of his lines do sound a bit too deep and oddly aggressively growly for Jonathan, when he's delivering his fighting lines, it's fucking incredible. Scarlet Overdrive has so much oomph to it in terms of both animation and vocal performance, and it only gets better. The animation goes in on this phenomenal sword battle. This is just some amazing work. It looks so good, it feels so fast and fluid, the music works incredibly, and the lines feel so in-fitting with at least JoJo. We know what Tanjiro is planning to do, and Jonathan's sort of, oh god, he's going for my neck style line is perfectly in character too. While I'm not a fan of the crazed eyes Jonathan has here as they're distractingly goofy, the fucking shout Benji gives to Metal Silver Overdrive is too good! But then what comes next is something else. Tanjiro shatters Jonathan's sword and goes after him full force, with Jonathan jumping back. We get what's sort of advertised as the JoJo color changing thing, at least it was on Twitter, but it doesn't hit the same. It feels like saturation was turned on. I don't know. It isn't bad, it doesn't detract, but it's not as good as I hoped. I'm just sort of neutral on it. But here we get the most JoJo possible way to deliver I just realized he's attacking my lungs. I love it. Tanjiro stabbing Jonathan, unleashing that fire dragon is impactful as all hell, but then, the revelation that Jonathan dodged by 2 inches. The fucking amazing Hamon channeling through Tanjiro's sword and Jonathan delivering a fucking phenomenal Sunlight Yellow overdrive while Tanjiro's sword is still in his fucking body. This is the standout moment of the fight. This raw showing of pure badassery as Jonathan goes in for the final blow, with an amazing Sunlight Yellow overdrive shot to cap up the fantastic performance Benji has given us. One that honestly matches up pretty well with Tom Shulk's Dio, even if I don't think it's quite as good, all while he doesn't even bother to pull the sword out of his chest. Hey, could you guys imagine if Benji and Tom were to just dub over the Jonathan Dio fight? The ending then. I appreciate it, I really do, and there's a lot I like, but I can't take this emotional moment seriously with the pacing and goofiness. Tanjiro just out of nowhere says, "She's my sister," and instantly the battle stops. Jonathan has these goofy ass cartoon tears that are and the fucking blubbering earrings where he's like, it's so funny, it takes away a lot from the emotion. And to that Tanjiro's head's just, misshapen and disformed, and this moment just doesn't hit home for me like it does everyone else. It'd be like if the emotional scene with Thor and his mother in Avengers Endgame was full of quips and, oh wait, hold on. It'd be like if Vader's death was prefaced with, "Take off my helmet." The mercy kill from Jonathan though, that's pretty good. That's a perfectly Jonathan way to end it. I also appreciate the last bit with Nezuko, with the ambiguous pullback from her hand as the screen goes dark. Did she go with him? Did she attack him? Who's to say? While this did not hit any powerful emotional beats for me simply because of how funny it was, I do appreciate the ending. It's a rare time Death Battle have taken a moment to just pause for the sake of character, to really get across some level of understanding of the combatants' personalities in the animation, instead of just making the animation poor Dragon Ball fight with no personality beyond quips and gags. I want more of this. Sure, it didn't work for me, but I still know it worked for others. And yes, I think the pacing and hilarity of it is just too wonky for me to say it was done well, but please, I would love if more episodes had this level of interest in telling something of a story, and feeling really like a crossover between the characters. The animation has a lot wrong, but none of it takes away from how much I love all the favorite bits of it. This battle has a lot going right, and as a fan of Jonathan, it gave me basically everything I could have wanted. Jonathan is acting exactly like he should past the intro to the fight, with the mental self-talk and oh my god, he's doing this and that, with some phenomenal shouts, amazing moments of just raw physical badassery, and an ending that does acknowledge his most admirable attributes, along with a mercy kill that feels perfectly as JoJo. I also just love everything going on with how the fight itself ends. The moment Tanjiro sees Hamon and how it works, he spends the next bit of the fight setting Jonathan up for the killing blow. While Jonathan tries to figure out what Tanjiro is doing, and only in the last moment does he figure it out, and at his speed advantage, dodged by a matter of inches right before the strike punches his lung. Jonathan immediately presses his advantage during the brief moment Tanjiro is shocked, taking a deep breath to channel Hamon through Tanjiro's sword to blast him away and going for his biggest and most powerful attack, despite knowing that a single wrong move could dig Tanjiro's sword into his own lung and kill him. It goes a long way to show Tanjiro's higher swordsmanship skill, ability to take advantage of opponent's weaknesses, and his precise attacking, as well as Jonathan's quick wit, pragmatism in the heat of battle, and sheer pain tolerance and endurance. The usage of the thread tightening and the inner monologue zoom in are perfect Demon Slayer and JoJo moments, capturing both the visual representation of Tanjiro seeing an opening, and Jonathan realizing his opponent's strategy. This entire moment perfectly captures the characters' fighting styles, personality traits, the way they strategize in battle, and the aesthetic methods of storytelling their series' use of battles during the most critical of moments. I also strangely like the conclusion. I don't know why, I just enjoy watching it. It might just be the track. I didn't care for Breathless Blades on his own, but it works so well in the fight, with the elements of Sonochi and Sadame making me smile whenever I notice them. And it gives us a fucking fantastic backing sound to the entire fight and to the inclusion. It sounds so cinematic and dynamic, like it really works to sound like a sort of music you'd expect from a big budget anime fight, and honestly, that's amazing. This is in many ways a flawed episode, but you know what? I kinda love it. It did Jonathan the best way I could ask for, and seeing as my interest in him has only gone up the longer I've watched JoJo past part 1, and come to appreciate his rivalry with Dio more and more, seeing a character I've grown to like this much represented really well works for me, even more than Wanda vs Zatanna, because I don't think Tanjiro had to be sacrificed for the sake of it. It gives me a more satisfying overall package, and while I do think Jinx vs Harley is a much better episode, I prefer Jonathan vs Tanjiro. This episode is currently my favourite of the season, even if I don't think it's necessarily the best. And I don't want people to think just because I was critical of a lot of it that I don't like it, because clearly I do. There is a lot I truly love. Especially basically the entire bit around Scarlet Overdrive. The whole segment is full of strong characterization, amazing vocal performances, stunning animation, fantastic choreography, brilliant effects, and a lot of care and passion. Matching perfectly with the music, which really kicks in here too. Everyone popped off for this battle. Enough that all of these flaws I mentioned should almost prop the episode up in a twisted way, because I like it this much even with all those flaws in mind. They don't take away as much from me as they did Wanda vs. Zatanna because everything else is too solid. It also does some things I don't think should be as unique feeling as they are, like darkening the area around the combatants to emphasize the character's focus. It just feels like that's not a common thing. Having the character's thoughts be heard so we know what they're thinking at any point, and including elements of story to the fight to make it feel more like a crossover. Also, the background is nice. I think this fight also serves as a testament to how battles with less overall animation potential in terms of what the character's abilities are probably better and more what I want to see in Death Battle nowadays. Wanda vs. Zatanna had a lot to be done, but didn't do it, and barely had any power usage in the fight. While Jonathan and Tanjiro's kits have way less going on, but managed to use a lot more of not just their kits, but a lot more in general happened than Wanda Zatanna, and at a faster pace while being fairly simple in a non-intrusive way. I don't think I have much more to say. Overall, I think this is a great episode. I'm giving it an 8, and a high one at that, because it really gives me what I wanted, and that's really all I can ask for, isn't it? I think with these issues ironed out, the writing a bit fixed near the start, a few animation fixes, and a better paced ending, this could have been a 9 for me, but it's still fantastic. I guess the only other thing I have to say is, I'm sorry to Benji that the preview had me thinking your performance was going to be subpar, because man, you and Tom made me fucking wish Jotaro's voice in his episode more than I already do. I can't wait for our next JoJo episode, because the last two we've gotten have been among my favorites of their seasons, which is less of a title here when there's only 3 episodes currently, but if this episode was beat out to the point where it's not at least in one of my personal favorites just because of how much I like it, this season is going to be pretty damn good. I don't often talk about what other matchups I want based on an episode's quality, but man, I'd take Kaz vs. Meruem or Okuyasu vs. Kurobara or something next season. Even if we're probably going to get Joker Giorno, which is going to be a fun wait period. Well, I can't even say that, can I? Because if they did the episode during the matchup's height of hype and not now when everyone's much calmer and fewer people seem to give a shit about having a strong opinion either way, it would be fun to make fun of the debate, but I didn't care about Demon Slayer getting another episode, but Mirio vs. Rengoku would be appealing in the same way as Jonathan vs. Tanjiro, because it's fucking Mirio. Oh, and the next time is lame, and the fact that the ad on the YouTube version takes place after the "It's time for a death battle" shout is a crime! Riz, help! I'm turned to a VTuber! People are gonna start throwing porn at me! That's right, Boomstick!